know what I mean? I mean, wouldn't it be better to focus on now and the salvation of the moment now? When Jesus himself said, um, all these things that I have done, you can do greater, and you will do greater. Forget about me, he said, ye are gods. You will do greater acts and works. It's all about the Christ within. In fact, in Colossians chapter 1, verse 27, the Apostle Paul says, the sacred secret of all times that was hidden to the ancients and is revealed to you now is the Christ within. That's the only Christ that exists, my friend. There is no other Christ outside, and anyone who looks for it is a fool.
But what drives people, Santos, to continue to believe in this historical Jesus? I mean, everybody's gone on this bandwagon of the historical Jesus, as I mentioned to you earlier about my friend, which really shocked me to see her now begin to talk about it as if Jesus was the Savior. Let's give him that title. I mean, she was also mentioning about another book, The 9 Faces of Jesus. I don't know if you've read about that one, but supposedly those are the 9 steps how to become what Jesus was teaching. Maybe that's what you're talking about. But they also mention a lot of how to prepare yourself to be a Jesus or a Christ or an ascended person, as you say, bring that oil up. But how do we prepare? How do we do that? I mean, that's in the ancient mystery schools. You had to go for many years through some type of training. I mean, in Dr. Ledwith talks about how this particular Jesus, historical Jesus, he had to go through 12 steps before he became the ascended, or he conquered himself. And when he says the last step was to be buried inside a sarcophagus and not being told when he was going to be let out of the sarcophagus. And it could be a day, it could be an hour, it could be 6 weeks, it could be a month, it could be a year, all boiling down to conquer the fear. So how is it that we prepare ourselves to become more consciousness or to become more Christ-like without having to go to these ancient mystery schools?
Well, one can initiate oneself. I would abstain from alcohol, number one, and tobacco, dangerous, and overeating. I would only put organic food into my body and pure water. That's the physical things that you can do, because it's also the process is also a physiological regeneration, not just spiritual. But the spiritual practices, I would be doing theurgy or yoga. I would be doing meditation, going within, staying away from television and all of these excesses. No excesses, pure moderation. And watch out with sex. I think sex is a beautiful, beautiful transmutative tool. But as I mentioned last week, one needs to be aware of the moon, where the moon is. When the moon is in your sun sign, that would be a good time to abstain totally from sex. Don't even think about it. Just read a book. And then other times, when the moon passes out of your sun sign, then I would be practicing, tantric sort of sex, whereby you don't need to always have this delightful little orgasm. The orgasm is it's known in occult science as wasting the seed. That seed is the Christ, and it wants to return back up the spine where it came from, you see, because the pia mater and the claustrum, the Santa claustrum, is always sending fluid down the spine. Now, the fluid that comes from the cerebrum and the pia mater in particular, it gets differentiated as it goes down. It gets differentiated by the two glands in the head, the pineal and the pituitary. The pineal turns the fluid into an electric force, and the pituitary turns it into a magnetic force, and they are sent down the spinal cord through the ida and the pingala. And these two nerves, they go down the spine, and then they go right down to the sacral plexus. And just above the sacral plexus is the solar plexus, and that's where the beautiful seed is born every month when the moon is in your sun sign. And that would be the best time to do your tithing or give your 10% back to God, which is Gad, which is the mind, the cerebrum, and return the fluid back to the. Once the fluid comes to the optic thalamus at the top of the spinal cord, then there is